Hey everyone, welcome to episode 253 of the All Dolphins podcast. And you may be wondering, where's the Expos hat?
And why you're betraying your beloved team by wearing another team's logo. Yeah.
Because I have
See
to
my
dress warm. Spending the week here in Canada, but the Dolphins coverage never ends. So Omar and I are
absolutely.
here on this
And how is
Monday morning.
Canada? What's the weather
Uh,
like?
it's actually getting warmer. Right now it's about 34, 35 degrees. The snow's on the verge of melting. We got a luge outing scheduled for tomorrow, and that's going to be one of the last times anybody's going to be able to do some luging down the mountain in these parts this year.
What is luging? Just so I know.
A
Yeah,
luge is like
I'm
it's,
from I'm from Miami, by way of
but
Jamaica,
yes,
so I have no idea what a luge is.
yeah, but being Jamaican, you should know about the Jamaican bobsled team. And a
Okay, so
luge
they're gonna
is
bobsled.
no, a luge is like a smaller form of a bobsled. It's a vehicle in which to slide down a mountain or a slope.
Okay, so they create the ramps and everything, or you just slide down on top of
No.
stuff.
It's on a whole mountain like you would be skiing, and you control the. It's one person on each luge, and you're like sitting back, and then you control the luge, and then you steer it, and then you also can brake or slow down as needed with your feet. It's actually very, very cool.
Tell your children I need video of this, okay? The All Dolphins
Well, you,
podcast video of this.
yeah, except it's tough to take video while you're luging. Actually, it may be that they get down first and then stop and then start doing this. So
Tell them make it happen. The kids
we'll
are
try. We'll
kids.
do our. That'll be our
Uh,
request.
all right.
Okay. So today is Monday, March 25th. Happy birthday to me. Thank you very much.
Happy birthday, by the way. Boo boo boo.
Woo!
I
One of these.
a 3-year-old candle, but yeah, I don't
Okay.
have any friends.
But enough with that nonsense. Today was technically the second day of the NFL owners meetings in Orlando. Was the AFC coaches breakfast where Mike McDaniel spoke for 30 minutes like everybody else and kind of said mostly what you would expect him to say pertaining to Tyreek Hill, Tua Tagovailoa, the team approach, and then
Rebuild.
Odell Beckham Jr. So which do we address first, Omar?
Let's go with the flashy item, which is Odell Beckham Jr. and basically the acknowledgement that an offer was made. I assume that means he passed a physical. As we discussed last week, I was initially not necessarily intrigued by Odell Beckham until I actually did a journalist's job, which is pour through the film work. Then when I watched the film and I saw exactly what he brought, I became extremely intrigued. Now the question is, how much are we still doing our hair? Let me fix mine too.
Yeah, my hair and makeup ladies is taking a break. So, but okay, enough with the toque. It's not that cold in the house. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's the question is, how much do you pay Odell Beckham Jr.? And I think the Baltimore Ravens, even when they signed him for $15 million, I thought to myself, what are you doing? That's probably at the least twice as much as you would have needed to have paid him as a 30-year-old wide receiver coming off an ACL injury after sitting out a year of football. He ended up being the third wide receiver there. And despite not having tremendously great numbers, he was very impactful and productive per snap, in my opinion, based on the film that I watched. And he brings a lot to the table. Is he an NFL starter? I would probably say on the fringe. However, is he a top 75 receiver in the league? Yeah, no question in my mind.
Okay.
Now,
And
would
this
he
is
pay
well, that's the thing. And this is a part where I'm going to say, at the risk of being the bad guy, that the idea that the Dolphins can get anybody they want in free agency because of all the built-in advantages, which I wrote about last week, including no state income tax, the weather, the great facilities. You got a very
Don't forget the
player-friendly
ladies.
head coach.
Don't forget the ladies. Don't
Okay,
forget the
the
ladies.
ladies and all that.
Don't forget the
In
ladies.
Okay, I said it. The ladies.
The
Okay,
ladies are like they count twice in the top five.
okay, and then the ladies also. But having said all that, in a lot of cases, money becomes the ultimate factor for Again, I don't want to say a percentage, but probably more than not, ultimately it's going to come down to what money's offered. So yeah, Odell Beckham wants to play for the Dolphins with all the bells and whistles and everything they have to offer, except they're going to have to show him the money he wants to see for him to sign. And it may be that some other team steps up in between and then he has to decide. My guess is he's going to he would go back to the Dolphins and say, they're offering me this. Are you willing to match? And at which point the Dolphins would then have to make a decision.
I really don't see any motivation to improve, enhance, significantly alter the offer. While the Dolphins don't have a lot of draft picks to go out and say, let's say we're going to make a receiver a priority selection with pick number 1 or pick number 2, which I don't think is out of the realm of possibilities, considering Jalen Waddle is going to be playing on a 5th-year option next year unless he gets an extension done this year. And then we've got, which is a possibility, Jerry Jeudy got an extension for about $15-16 million a year. I'm pretty sure I would pay that for Jalen Waddle. Then you got Tyreek Hill, who is basically finishing up his guaranteed money this year. Next year is really the last year of his deal because there's absolutely nobody in the world who's going to pay him $45 million for the 2026 season. So
his money runs out this year.
No, his guaranteed money runs out this year, but he's got another year on his contract at $24 million. And then his 2026 year is at $45 million. And there's nobody who's paying Tyreek $45 million a season.
Agreed.
So I always thought, and this parlays us to our second conversation if we're finished with the Odell Beckham, who I would not be paying more than $5 to $7 million.
And chances are, if they do sign him to that kind of contract, they may do what they've done with Shaq Barrett, as revealed on Monday. This is where Omar rolls the eyes with his 2 favorite words coming up: void years. And with Shaq Barrett's contract, apparently it's 4 void years on what's really a 1-year contract. You okay,
Could
Omar?
you have potentially done anything more irresponsible on a 1-year contract? Anything?
5 void years instead of 4.
All right. Okay, I will accept that. I will accept that as an offer, but damn, like, are we really doing this? Like, are we really doing this as an organization? Okay, if that's what we're doing,
Yeah.
that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. All right. But as I said previously, maybe a month ago, when we were trying to figure out ways to get out of this apocalypse, I thought the easiest and smartest and safest route would have been to extend Tyreek's contract and drop his cap number, probably about $14 million. The Dolphins did everything kind of but that and extend Tua Tagovailoa. And you have to think maybe Tyreek's eventful offseason that does not feature an arrest, but features a lot of trouble and lawsuits and divorce information and turmoil. Let me say this very gingerly. The Kansas City Chiefs knew Tyreek was probably the top 5 weapon in the NFL, but they also knew that they didn't want to pay him like that, and they probably knew that there were things that they didn't want to deal with anymore. Let's get ahead of it, and maybe we're seeing the downside of that. I don't think he's gotten into any trouble. I would hate to think that he wasn't smart enough to sign a prenuptial agreement before he got married and then don't want to talk about anybody's business, try to get her to sign a prenuptial agreement after they were married. But, I don't get in people's personal life. Tyreek hasn't been arrested. A lot of these incidents have looked poor look, but not dangerous element, not like last offseason. So maybe that's a reason or a factor why they did not extend it. Or maybe it's coming. Maybe it's not. Who knows? But
Correct.
Mike McDaniel today did say that they've had an open line of communication with Tyreek, and they know who Tyreek is. and we know who Tyreek is, kind of.
Correct. Yeah, and again, I mean, they haven't done anything with this contract yet. And as you mentioned, it was one of the easy kind of low-hanging fruit in terms of creating cap space. And it may be, sorry?
And they avoided it.
Correct. I mean, but there's nothing to say that they can't do anything between now and the start of the regular season. There's still plenty of time left. I mean, and they can create a cap space. They're not done trying to create cap space if they can do it. So who knows where that goes. But again, Mike McDaniel, as we mentioned early on at the start, said what you're expected to say because he was asked directly about Tyreek and the off-the-field situations, I should say. And it was like, yeah, we've been constant communication. The lines of communication are open and all that. And wasn't anything that was overly, earth-shattering in terms of his comments there.
Yeah, no.
Correct.
And we don't know. There is no arrest record. So a police report isn't the gospel. It's not factual information. So, and in fact, these aren't even police reports. So these are incident reports. So let's see what happens with this. And let's see what happens with Tyreek. Obviously, we know Tyreek's a dynamic player, but clearly he's got to stay out of trouble in the offseason. Hell, everybody needs to stay out of trouble in the offseason, but Tyreek just so happens to have a lot of incidents. Stay home.
He does. The next topic is Mike McDaniel's comments about the approach of the team, where he kind of bristled at the suggestion that the Dolphins were in a reset mode, which was written, I believe it was an ESPN story, unless I'm severely mistaken.
By Marcel?
I believe so, quoting a team source saying that they were kind of in a reset type of situation, and Mike McDaniel was like, but again, find me very rare as the head coach is going to say, yeah, the upcoming season is going to be kind of a rebuilding mode for us, and don't want to set expectations too high. Yes, it does happen, but not very often, particularly the coach of a team that just made the playoffs the past 2 seasons.
We are both experts. We are both very seasoned veterans who've covered the Dolphins for 50 seasons collectively. I think we're going on 52 now. Are the Dolphins resetting?
They're adjusting. How's that? Is that better?
Okay, I'll accept you're adjusting, and I will top that off with they're positioning themselves for a reset in 2025.
Oh, that's correct. That's correct.
So, there is no coincidence that only one player that they've signed has guaranteed money next year. Mm-hmm. And there is no coincidence. Let me look at how many players have actual guaranteed money in 2025. I don't want to go into that because then somebody's going to write it and I still haven't written it. So
don't go into it.
I won't go into it. But they're positioning themselves for a reset. So it's a I don't know where I have not pressed the reset button, but I certainly have located it and opened up the lid, protecting it.
Yeah, and yet, it's very strange to try to figure out exactly where they are in reset, long-term approach, all in. Because if they were completely all in, you bite the bullet and you franchise Christian Wilkins at $22 million for 1 year. Hear me out. If you're completely reset, are you signing so many guys? No, you would be signing a lot of guys.
You got to fill the replacements.
More years. You have what?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're right. I hear what you're saying. If you were resetting, you wouldn't be signing guys to void year contracts. You'd really just be signing stopgap players. If you were resetting.
Correct, because there's going to be a bill due at some point down the road for those guys where none of them, except for Jalen Ramsey, which is I think $4 million a year in dead cap. Everybody else is around $1 million or two for or $1 or $1 million plus. For one player is not a big deal. Once you keep doing that for 5, 6, 7, 8 players, it does add up. It
does add up indeed. I I understood where he's coming from, but we've had an episode where we broke down where they made gains and then where they lost. The losses were clearly at defensive tackle. The losses were at outside linebacker. The gains were at tight end, at inside linebacker. And really, your offensive line is still unsettled. Your wide receiver unit kind of still unsettled. I don't think you've addressed where you only have one edge right now on your roster. So now these are things that can be filled later on in free agency, just like they signed Isaiah Wynn after the draft, and they could sign quality players after the draft. They can go and see what they need to adjust. There's still tons of free agent receivers available in free agency. That's not just Odell Beckham. There are tons of available cornerbacks if you want to supplement that unit. Safeties, hell, if you want to go out there and you want to sign Justin Simmons, please, let's do it. Be my guest. I don't even care what happens to Jordan Poyer. Hell, I'd move Javon Holland nickel if that was the case. I don't care. He's a very good player. But are they all in? I don't know about all that. Do you see all in moves?
I think they're all in and but not jumping off a cliff, or they went down a couple of miles down the mountain to a smaller cliff, something along those lines.
They fell a little bit. They slipped while climbing the hill and fell a little bit, like 20 feet down, and grabbed a branch, held firm, and tried to start to make their way back up the mountain. That's pretty much where you are this offseason, because if you think you're not going to lose Robert Hunt and Andrew Van Ginkel or Christian Wilkins, you're sadly mistaken. But ultimately, it's about players taking that next step, and even the coaching staff kind of took a dip down. I don't know if people want to talk about that, though. We don't.
Let's talk about the coaching staff for a second. And Mike McDaniel being asked about play calling duties, and him saying that he actually thought after the end of last season, of giving it up, but decided, I'm going to keep it.
I think that was about as long as the thought happened.
He did say he's going to continue to think about it. And generally speaking, it's really rare for an offensive coach who calls his own plays to all of a sudden say, go ahead, take it over.
I've been thinking about that and doing research and trying to find one that took it away. I think Dallas's coach is the only one that I can find. That
Mike
McCarthy. Yeah. Mike McCarthy was the only one that actually, like Andy Reid has in words said he's given up play calling duties, but then I read stories where players are saying, Andy Reid still calls plays.
Yeah.
They just did that for aesthetics and to help out other assistants. But yeah, I'm sorry. I forget. I think it might have been Gates who said to me or us one time, like, you don't work this hard to put yourself in the position to be the guy calling the shots and then give away the best part of the job. Like, that doesn't happen.
Correct. Yeah. And as I wrote, it's like, okay, no, it wasn't perfect. And the short yardage play calls that time you could question and all that. But the bottom line is, last I checked, the Dolphins were first in total offense in 2023. They were second in points scored. And if you don't think that the play calling has anything to do with that, I don't know what to tell you. So it's really easy, because I know Dolphin fans are fixated on the issues with short yardage and then goal to go. Oh my God, the play calling was horrible. Well, can we give props to the play calling that helped the Dolphins finish number one in total offense and second in scoring?
I've never really understood. Like, as I said on the Joe Rose show this morning, I'm like, explain to me or tell me the last time you had the number 6 and number 1 offense in back-to-back years, ever. Like, if you're that good, you're arguably a top 5 offensive unit, and didn't do that like accidentally, because you had injuries both seasons that impacted your performance. So you did that despite not being at full strength. You got something special there. So I'm not interested in taking play calling duties and ability from Mike McDaniel. If somebody's called an offensive mastermind and a genius, which is how he's described in the NFL and labeled, rightly or wrongly, or whether you agree with it or disagree with it, that's how he's described. Why the hell would I take play calling ability away from him? That makes no sense to me.
No, I agree. Next topic, which is your favorite topic, is
What years?
Tua. No, Tua. Boyd yours is your second favorite topic. Tua is your favorite topic. And basically he might make what? I was just gonna set it up for you. Line it up and you knock it down. That Mike McDaniel was asked whether there was any concern or thought that Tua might want to skip the offseason program as a, I don't know, show protest or to use his bargaining power when he has it right now, looking for a long-term contract extension, which still hasn't been done, instead of being forced to play on the fifth-year option, which may or may not happen. I doubt it, but still, it's right now it's still in play.
I think
McDaniel said that's not Tua.
It's not Tua, but it should be Tua. And I'm writing a column in alldolphins.com, which is, I don't know. I'm writing a column that Poupard will put up whenever he feels like it.
I'm sorry.
That this is a player's leverage. When does business in the NFL get done, Alan Poupard?
I don't disagree with you, and it has more impact coming from a quarterback, because if the idea is to like try to get the offense to mesh, even though I am kind of the mindset that the offseason program and getting everybody there a tad overrated. But if you were to do that again in training camp, but in training camp, you had to hold in. Otherwise,
hold in. Yeah. If you hold out, you can hold out in the offseason program. There's no violation because offseason is not mandatory. Now, mandatory minicamp, he could skip that and be subjected to a $90,000 fine. I think that's stupid. Don't cost yourself money. I was against that with Connor Williams. I told him, you missed one day, you made your statement, we wrote our stories, now show up for work and save yourself the price of a Benz. Obviously, he didn't listen. And the exact reason why he was pushing for a multi-year contract, we see now, because his career could potentially be over. But if Tua doesn't take a hard and firm, Tua and his camp, because we know it's not in Tua, and I write that, it's not in Tua to twist the arm of the organization. He's Mr. I'm a nice guy. If you do not do it now, when will you do it? And here's the thing. People like you, and including me, and a lot of people think that it's best for the organization to make him play on the fifth-year option. You know how you do that? You don't make him what they view as a fair offer. Okay. If they're not motivated to make you a fair offer, or give them a deadline, don't show up. And until you feel like you've got a fair offer. And if that impacts the team's performance, he's never going to do that. But if they say we're going to do a deal for you and what's offered isn't what you feel is fair, what recourses or consequences do you give them as a quarterback, the most important player? You're like, do nothing, right? Do nothing, huh? That's the right strategy.
I hear where you're coming from, but there's a gamble involved there, because the Dolphins ultimately do not have to give him a long-term extension if they don't want to, which is what they did. If the terms are not agreeable to them, they really wanted to sign Christian Wilkins last summer, but they wanted to sign him at their number. Christian and his representative wanted more, and they were like, "We love you, Christian, but that's tough. You're gonna have to play on the fifth-year option."
And Christian did a hold-in. Christian did a hold-in.
But then it paid off for him because he balled out.
Okay, but he did a hold-in to get their attention and to force the issue. He did not practice and participate for 3 weeks.
Okay. What issue did he force? He still didn't get his contract.
Okay, my point is, Tua should do the same thing.
And my point, that's fine, but there is a gamble involved because, again, and again, this is like, we haven't heard the numbers or seen the numbers of what's been offered, what's been discussed. If it's a laughable offer to Tua right now, or like way below market value, then yeah, that's fine. But there's going to be, if the Dolphins decide what you're asking for is completely unrealistic, way more than we want to offer, and you're going to play on the 5th-year option, and if he balls out, then in a Tua, it's like cha-ching. But if he has like a bad season, then it's a gamble that could wind up hurting.
Or if he Connor Williams is it and suffers an injury,
Right.
I mean, that's why players do not play on contracts that are expiring at the end of the season. There's a massive risk associated with it, as opposed to walking away with $100 million in guaranteed money by just accepting a $40 million a year contract. And that's a Daniel Jones price.
They don't do it by choice, but a lot of players don't have the leverage to where I'm not playing on the last year of my contract, and you're not going to make me. And if you're good enough,
like a Pro Bowl starter,
level, sorry,
like a Pro Bowl starter.
Yeah, we're gonna have the discussion, the Tua discussion here.
If you're good enough, I would think a Pro Bowl starter would be good enough, but that's beside me. That's besides the point. But continue, carry on.
Correct. No, and that would be the argument from Tua's side, and the argument from the other side would be, okay, Pro Bowl starter, great stats and all that, fantastic. Team was 1-6 against playoff teams, and your performance in all of those games.
That was my fault.
It was partly your fault. It wasn't entirely. It wasn't.
Okay, but now you're penalizing me for something that's not entirely my fault.
But now I'm also not going to treat you like somebody who was always part of the solution all the time, even when it fails. That's the dilemma, and this is where the back and forth that goes on with Tua, and the Tua supporters will be like, he's the guy, Pro Bowl starter, led the NFL in passing yards. Not his fault that they lost those games. It was everybody around him, pay him his money. And the Tua detractor or realists, as I like to call them, will say, great stats, Pro Bowl starter, had a very good year.
What if you want?
But there were shortcomings on the resume.
You'll see my column on alldolphins.com. I'm pro player. It doesn't change where I stand. And even though I would, as an organization, make Tua play on the 5th-year option, I know that Tua has some leverage and some control. And if he sits out OTAs or sits out early training camp or does not participate, like at the bare minimum, I would not be participating in the exhibition season at all. There's no chance I'm stepping on a football field without a new deal. And
the leverage he has is all the public stuff like this. That's leverage for Tua. I mean, that's unless this is all PR.
I think it's 50-50. I think there's just as much love for Tua as there is concern about him in the 5th-year option. Give me 1 second.
Okay. While Omar goes to attend to the flushing toilet, I guess that was. I'm going to tackle two. Sorry, wasn't your toilet?
My vacuum was running.
Oh, okay. Two quick NFL-related notes. I am very sad that the Philadelphia Eagles proposal to substitute an declared onside kick when you're trailing with a 4th and 20 from your own 20-yard line was defeated. It's not happening. And to me, it's like it's such a boring play. The onside kick is horrible. It's brutal. It's horrible. It's like it's 3%, I think, is a success rate when the other team's coming. And apparently, I saw some comments from Darren Rizzi, former Dolphins special teams coordinator, who's a big guy in terms of advancing special teams rules. And his one concern that he expressed was if you make it 4th and 20, this is a play where you could have like a ticky-tack defensive holding or pass interference or hands to the face, and boom, it's an automatic first down. I get it. I completely get it. Then I would counter, then instead of doing that, how about for that one particular play, you tweak the rules where a defensive holding is not an automatic first down, it's 5 yards, and then it becomes 4th and 15. And same with hands to the face. DPI, you make it a spot foul, and you play the 4th down from the previous spot, as opposed to making it exactly the same rules. Because again, to me, as bad as the kickoff returns have become, where everything's a touchback or a fair catch now inside the 25, to me, the onside kick is basically just as boring. It's basically, if you know a team needs an onside kick recovery to have a chance, the game's over. Might as well go watch something else.
Hands team. No,
It's boring.
you know, they'll figure it out. The rules that did pass were, why am I drawing a blank? Oh,
Detroit Lions replay challenge.
what'd you say?
Detroit Lions replay challenge. It used to be that if you were successful on your first two challenges, you got a third. Now you only have to be successful on one of your two to get that third.
Also hip tackle, the hip drop tackle has been eliminated from the NFL. And Javon Holland put out a little snazzy little tweet, which basically means tackling is abolished from the NFL, which, as I say, defenders are the drapes in the living room. They don't do anything to accentuate the space. They're just there. They're a backdrop.
That is deep.
It is what it is. They're the drapes in the NFL. Nobody's there to see them. Like what was that movie where nobody came to see you, Otis? I forget what the group was.
The thing I don't like about that I don't like watching guys get their legs mangled because of that tackle, but the NFLPA was against banning the hip drop tackle. So I mean, maybe let them decide that. I don't know.
Yeah, but then the NFL provided film, their cut-ups, and they did their slanted statistical study, which proved that this leads to a higher proportion of injuries. However, I mean, there's like a very small strike zone in terms of how defenders can tackle guys now.
Yep.
You can't tackle them too low. You can't tackle them too high. You can't tackle them with you can't tackle them with your helmet. You got to tackle them with your chest and shoulder. And now when you're bringing them down to the ground, you can't just drop your hits. But I did understand it when I saw the video, because when you see the video and you see guys grabbing a guy and then just falling to the ground, you can see that there's room for a lot of injuries. And as we know, the one thing the NFL cannot afford when they are a $20 billion business is for their star players to get injured. And I believe the Dolphins had a couple that were injured on hip drop tackles. Now, if only the NFL addressed their turf issue and insisted that every team played on grass, then maybe we'd have even less injuries. But, that requires money, not just penalizing players.
Excellent point. Excellent point. And I think we should end it on that note, because that was a brilliant point, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Where are my hearts?
Oh, sorry. Right. Since I'm in Canada, there we go.
All right. We will be back tomorrow as usual. alldolphins.com to find all our written work. And we will see you tomorrow.